panel the discussion, an objective and impartial view of the issues of interest to you. Nation Beat is on now.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Nation Beat here on NTN, the production of the Government Information Service. My name is Kendall Eugene, and today we have a panel discussion that will welcome three guests. From Pride 758, we have Jessica St. Rose. We have the communications officer from ECAID, that's Randall Theodule, and the human rights activist is here with us, Jacob Nestor. Welcome everyone to Nation Beat, and welcome to our panel discussion. The discussion will focus on the title, Identity Through the Ages, My Journey, My Era. And identity, of course, is something that many may say is a broad prospect, but we will try to get your understanding on identity and what it means to you, as well as how your understanding of it has evolved through the years. So we will open the floor with you, Ms. St. Rose. Give us your definition on identity, and while you're at it, let us know a little bit about you as well.
Thank you, Mr. Eugene, for having us here this morning. I'm happy to be here. My name is Jessica St. Rose. I'm the founder of 758 Pride in St. Lucia. I'm also a human rights activist who focuses on LGBTQI rights, women and girls. 758 Pride started in 2019, and this is our 6th year doing Pride. And this year we had a series of activities. Started on Friday, where we had a panel, the launch of Pride, and we had an opening night party. Saturday we went on to Constitution Park, where we had our educational and health fair, and Sunday we had our staple event, the drag queen show, featuring international drag queen Monet Exchange, and today we're here with the panel discussion. Identity, what does identity mean to me as a person? It basically means being my true self, being identified as someone who knows who I am, knows what I believe in, and also being able to be visible in my true self as my identity as a woman who understands the struggles of person, as a woman who understands the struggles within the LGBT community, and giving of my identity and my visibility as an open LGBTQI person can also bring forth hope to other persons who want to express their own identity, and not just their self-identity, but also express their gender identity and probably their own sexual identity. So in essence, this is what identity means to me.
All right. Why do you think that is important for someone to have that belief and that understanding of themselves?
At the end of the day, I think it's important for persons to have that belief in themselves, because it allows you to be expressive and be true to yourself. And at the end of the day, we all want to live our lives being truthful and being happy. And if you want to live a fulfilled life, you have to sometimes accept your identity and accept yourself for who you are. And again, we live in it's unfortunately we live in societies that don't necessarily allow us to express our true identities, and that in itself can hinder us as a people. So I think it's important to understand you as a person, understand where you're coming from, where you want to go, and see how you can build on that identity.
Okay. Let's go now to Jacob.
Yes.
All right. Jacob, you're a human rights activist.
Yes,
okay. That's a title that many would claim to have, but not can officially say that they understand what it is to be a human rights activist. I would like to know a little bit about you as well. So tell us about yourself.
So my name is Jacob Nestor. I am the USAID Youth Ambassador for St. Lucia and the United Nations Youth Council representative, along with Mr. Theodule. I have done a lot of youth work, and when it comes to human rights, I've done human rights for the LGBTQI plus community, marginalized groups, the rights of a child, girls, special education, persons in the special education field as well. When you look at also climate change and health, and also I've done a lot of human rights activism when it comes to education and getting people to really focus on education and really developing curricula. That's just me in a nutshell. But overall, my overall thing is that I just look at the self-development of a country, but for that to happen, you need to look at the self-development of a people. And how do you do that is through activism, getting people aware of the impact of how things affect them, and also getting conversation started so that there can be this level of discourse, so people can now be in the fray of, oh, I know about this has been going on, this is what, and letting people know what avenues are there for this self-development, because that's very vital to me.
Why is that vital to you? Why would you look at it and say this is one of the most important staples?
Because I understand where I came from. Being raised in Rosehill near Wilton Ziad, the level of stigma and discrimination you would get coming from a place that is categorized to be ghetto, but living there does not feel like a ghetto. It feels like anywhere else on earth. So for me, just coming from those types of areas, all the students around me and all the people around me had to work 3 times as hard to make a name for themselves, or to become someone, or to just be respected. Even in your community, you're respected. But when you go outside, they're just somebody seeing you walking in there, they already associate you with persons who are not necessarily from the community, but on the outside. So for me, self-development really looks at reaching one's full potential before they have left this world. And that is my true goal and my true purpose for everybody.
Okay. What would you say some of your biggest challenges have been so far, or what are some of the obstacles you faced on that journey to self-development and self-discovery?
I would say one of the biggest obstacles I've faced is the closing of doors, the closing of windows, and the closing to opportunity.
I have never heard the closing of windows before.
Listen, for me, I look at opportunity as what's inside of a house. Opportunity comes as being allowed to stay in a room in a hotel or in a house. And windows, doors, and what's the representation of a house is are the people or the obstacles that you face. The key obstacle you usually face is people who knew or understand the struggle, but they're not willing for you to reach there because they don't see you at that level. And that's something society needs to change, their view of your true potential. We cannot gauge each other's potential. I may be a bad boy today and become a politician tomorrow. What I do in the dark whilst I'm there making trouble, and I've been known to do that. When I went to Entrepot, I was giving a lot of trouble. But home I was studying, like I was doing my work. So yeah, I will talk the talk and walk the walk. But then at the end of the day, people know what they want and expect from this life. I could be pushing drugs for like a... You don't have to think that I push drugs. You don't have to know I know drugs. The people most of us respect, they have an agenda. The people we disrespect, they still have an agenda. Everybody has a goal in this life. So for me, opportunity really looks at always being told no by people who sit in key positions, but at the same time creating opportunity for yourself. I didn't have to wait on anybody to offer me something. I went out there, Googled it, see what workshops they were having, applied for it, whether it be here or overseas. Got to travel a lot because of it, made a name for myself because of it. But the thing with opportunity, when opportunity comes, you need to learn to remain humble but share the opportunities. And that's where we as a society have failed young people, because we have a lot of gatekeepers when it comes to those types of avenues.
All right.
Okay.
Randall, tell us about your role with ECAD.
ECAD.
Okay, ECAD.
Yeah.
You're the communications officer.
Yeah.
All right. Tell us about that role, and what do folks expect from you?
Oh, boy. Well, where can I start? I think they expect quite a lot. But of course, just to start, my name is Randall. My backgrounds are very similar to Jakob's own.
You have Windows closing on you too?
To some extent, yes. We've also served on a few boards together, been involved in a lot of the same spaces.
Okay.
Right now, we both sit on the Youth Advisory Group for the United Nations, Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean. And of course, with ECAD, well, I think let me just start. My journey started with United and Strong back in 2014. So currently now 10 years into the advocacy space. I think getting involved with ECAD opened my eyes to a lot more wide and broader opportunities and challenges faced by marginalized communities, because we don't necessarily work with only the LGBTQ plus community, but work with women and girls, people living with unaffected by HIV, youth, and now sort of getting climate change involved in our advocacy, because we tend to look at the intersectionality with climate change and gender. And I think without gender justice, there's not climate justice. Without climate justice, there's not gender justice. And I think it's important to highlight that, because we need to realize climate change does not affect only one set of people. It affects everybody. And unless we could maybe understand the full concept of that and look at all the different sets of intersectionalities and how we can approach this from different lenses, then we will be able to better understand and deal with situations that affect us as a people.
All right. Now, in your experience, what would you say have been some of societal expectations and the norms? How would you say they've influenced understanding of identity?
I think, identity means something different to everybody. And for me, it's more about how I see myself, the beliefs that I have in myself. And somebody else might not see it that way. For them, identity might just be, whatever you just look like in the moment. And I think people have some set of expectations as to what it should be. I mean, I think now with the new era of technology and social media, how people see a lot of things are being reflected, they sort of take that and run with it as that should be what everybody should look like. That's the standard now. But really and truly, everybody should just look within and think of what they want to be and how they could be that and be the best version of themselves. And I think that would just, for me, that's what it is. And I think society might have a lot of expectations of how they would want you to deal with certain things, how they would want you to move around with certain things. I think it's just more a case of having conversations, letting people understand and know that identity is what you make it and what you want it to be, and not what everybody else wants you to be.
A keen sense of self.
Yeah.
Okay, understood. With your experience, can you share a pivotal moment in your life that has impacted you, significantly impacted your sense of self?
Wow. For me, I think two things really that stuck with me. I think the first one, where I really appreciated who I was as an individual, and the whole cultural aspect, because culture is also part of identity, the cultural identity, professional identity, and all that. But I think the first time when I went to the World Youth Festival back in 2017 in Russia, and being there among 30,000 young people, and seeing like one of two St. Lucians who were present, understanding that, the culture and the representation that I brought to such a festival had so many people interested in wanting to learn about where I'm from, what the cultural aspect is like, and just wanting to get a broader understanding of St. Lucia. I think for me that was one of the most pivotal moments in my life. And of course the second one is very similar, because it's still happening in the exact same environment in Russia again, because I was there earlier this year in February. And that one for me opened my eyes to a lot of things, and in terms of wanting to learn more about different cultures and different experiences, because I know now with the whole, and I mean, I'm not bringing that into the conversation to us to take it back, but the whole thing with Russia and Ukraine and how there's sort of like the whole negative connotations associated with that. And for me, being there and understanding the situation from neighboring countries and from Russians itself, it's like I have to appreciate where I'm from. For me, being in that space made me realize that I have something that I have to value. I have something that I have to take care of. And it's something that I think all of us need to be aware of. We might be a very small island to some people, but what we have here is a lot more, and we could contribute a lot more than what people really want us to believe that we could. And for me, these experiences made me realize that St. Lucia really have a lot to offer, and we have a lot of young people who are so talented, who could do so much, and if just given the opportunities or given the chances to just be them true selves and show what they could do, I really think that we will be able to put St. Lucia out there a lot more. And like Jacob said, with all the doors and windows closing,
it's not going to allow.
They're not going to allow us to do that. You have people who constantly just take all the opportunities and keep it to themselves. They don't want to. They don't want to allow young people to take over or come into the conversation.
Why do you think they're afraid of that? It sounds like a lot of individuals are afraid to allow young people to quote-unquote takeover? What do you think?
For me, I think it comes from a place of not wanting to let go of, what they've been taught. Because to them, what they're taught is what the right way. And with, new people coming, things change. And with, like I said earlier, the advancement of technology, how that could be involved in certain areas. I think the older generation, they don't want to leave these things. They want us to preserve the culture. While we want to preserve the culture, we also want to incorporate new things into the culture. And there are ways that we could do that without having been using the exact same thing that, they've been taught for years and years and years. Don't have to change the entire wheel. Just fix it and make it better.
All right.
I think that's where we could go.
Now, Jakob seems to be in great agreement with what you were saying, but I'll come to you in a little while. Jessica, he spoke on culture just a while ago. How do you think culture has a role, or do you think culture has a role in shaping identity?
Absolutely. As a people, we are brought up in a cultural environment, the way we're socialized, the way we're brought up, what we're taught, what we know as the norms and as our traditional values. These things add to shaping our own identity. And like Randall was saying, when we want to preserve the culture, but it doesn't mean that when we're preserving the culture, we can change things around but not lose the essence of the culture. And I think when we have the culture and we want to continue building on the culture, it will help the young people to understand and to know that we can still have the culture but don't get lost in our identity with the culture. When you look at, for example, the LGBT community, when you look at spaces like Carnival, it allows them to express themselves and show their true identity. Carnival is a form of expression. It's also a part of our culture, and that in itself allows us to be expressive. And that in itself is culture and identity. So you see how the two can intertwine with each other. Identity, expression, culture, all of that is very relatable. And this is why we don't want to have the gatekeepers to not allow the young people to come in and not necessarily change the narrative, but to also add a bit of essence to it. And that will allow persons to develop more of a true identity and self-expression.
Okay. With the gatekeepers now, let's go and have Jakob speak on that. I would take it you have experienced a few gatekeepers yourself?
Quite a few.
All right. What was your first reaction when something you wanted to have done, it was denied, and you could not even understand why?
So my first reaction when I was denied in that situation was like, oh wow, so I'm not qualified enough, so I'm not good enough for the opportunity. And then I was seeing people who, I don't want to look down on anyone, but people who came from a background and didn't really push as hard as I did get the opportunity. And one thing we need to understand about gatekeepers is that there is a level of authority or power that they feel that they're privy to because opportunities have to be approved or go through them for certain people. And they tend to keep those types of opportunities for family and friends or family, etc. And people never like persons who have a different opinion or who have a different thought process or are very critical thinkers to get opportunities, because then now you don't come to them anymore for something. So think of a gatekeeper as a restaurant and you come in with your money to pay for the food, etc. A gatekeeper will think of themselves as a Michelin 5-star restaurant, etc. But really and truly, you have the money, you're supposed to be able to go anywhere to eat, but they feel like you're supposed to always come to them because they consider themselves to be the best. But that's not the case. There are different avenues to access different opportunities. A gatekeeper might deny the opportunity for something, but then there's always somebody ahead of the gatekeeper that you can go to, or just email directly or call directly, etc. For gatekeepers, they are fixed in the mindset that the power is in their hands to tell you yes or no, because they themselves have gone through the process of being told no before. So now they feel like, okay, I've reached now and I have the power. So you're not talking to me nice, or you're not doing something nice enough for me. I don't feel you deserve that opportunity. And that's how it's always been. If you look at every single facet in society, when you go, whether you go to an interview or not, you could tell from the onset, based on how the person speaks to you, there's this level of prejudice based on how you speak, based on how you look, based on how you answer the questions, whether or not you're going to get the opportunity, because the person has already created in their mindset a preconceived notion of who you are and just of whether or not you would be able to work within the organization or work within the thing. And that's where we fall, and we're very lackluster. And that is why I always tell people, when we're doing interviews, for example, when you're applying for a job, I hate sending out a cover letter. Why should I send out a cover letter? It doesn't tell you who I am. Just look at the resume and just say, okay, he's a good fit for the interview. We can interview him. Somebody can write a cover letter for me. You find very good talents who maybe cannot even write themselves a cover letter, but they have a very good resume. There's people like that. And so we tend to lose good people because of our own preconceived notions. Yes.
Okay. Let's take a quick break. We will come back and have another chat with our panelists here today. We are discussing identity through the ages, my journey, my era. This is Nation Beat. We'll be back after these messages.
What's in the food you're eating? Do you really even know? All the chemicals and hormones used to accelerate their growth. All the artificial flavoring, sweeteners and colors too. We consume and we don't spare a thought for the damage that they'll do. No, think about the children. Think about the children. How will we save them? Chemicals and GMOs are not the solution. Use organic and join revolution. Excessive agrochemical use, additives, and genetically modified foods are harmful to health and the environment. Join the good food revolution. Grow, buy, and consume organic. A message from Rise St. Lucia and the Ministry of Sustainable Development with funding from the GEF Small Grants Program, UNDP. The Good Food Revolution.
Welcome back to Nation Meet, a production of the Government Information Service and NTN. My name, Kendall Eugene, and we are here with three panelists from 758 Pride. We have Miss Jessica St. Rose. I'm sure a lot of you might remember her on the soca stage, but that's for another show. We have with us the communications officer from ECADE. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Okay,
ECADE,
great.
yeah.
Randall Theodore, and we have Jakob Nestor, human rights activist. We ended the first portion of the interview with Jakob, so we're going to start now with you, Randall. All right. Technology is playing a major role in our lives. In fact, if WhatsApp were to go down now, some people would lose their minds. If people cannot get access to Facebook, it would be a problem. So social media is almost like second nature for everyone. How would you say technology has impacted your experience of identity and self-expression?
Very interesting. For me,
For you?
I think for me it's more a sense of finding community and finding a safe space. I think social media has allowed people the opportunity to be themselves, although it's open to putting yourself out there to being judged by people you probably do not know. There's also that side to social media where you could find family, where you could find friends, where you could build that community of support. And I think social media has allowed me the opportunity to use that space to find that community, find that close-knit community of people who I could consider, my family, friends, wherever that may be. And it's also a case where if you travelers, you could find opportunities to people who maybe sort of share similar values with your similar beliefs, or maybe identify the same way as you do, to sort of build that network, and you know, just being able to express yourself freely on these platforms, finding your voice, because I know people sort of think, and I mean, you know, here we're discussing identity, and of course social media allows you to use your voice to express that via, you know, because some people might be a lot more comfortable speaking on social media than coming on television and stuff like that. So, you know, using social media as your form of advocacy also, to find your community in that advocacy space. So I think all that makes, you know, part of who you are. And I think that's how social media has worked for me. It has allowed me to build a network of lots of youth activists around the region, around the world. Found that community of activism, whether it be youth, women and girls, LGBTQ plus activists. I know we sort of work to sort of build something where we could also develop, like, you know, a region that's safe and could be a place where people could just be freely and live freely. And that's why I constantly advocate for people. If you're not part of an organization, you don't need to be part of an organization, you could use social media as your advocacy tool. And I think it's really important that people could also understand that, because social media plays a huge role in how, you know, some policy officers, governments, politicians, whatever it is, might take opinions of people from social media to maybe taking to parliament to develop some sort of policies that could assist. Because I don't think they've fully understood the importance of social media and how much of a powerful tool it is. People tend to just use it for fun, to make fun of people and laugh at situations. But using social media for the right thing could be beneficial to lots of people and help you fully develop who you are as an individual.
Jessica, what would you say were some of the unique challenges and obstacles you faced as a member of the community, the LGBTQ plus community in your generation? And that's why I deliberately reminded folks of what you did back in the days. Okay.
And yes, and you mentioning that just brought up something, just reminded me of my days as a soca artist and identifying as an openly gay person. One of the biggest challenges I face, and also being, you know, a public face as a soca artist, and during that time, that's when I started my journey into activism. And I remember clearly going on stage on the night of Soca Monarch and walking up the ramp to go up when they called my name to perform, and all I heard were slurs, name calling, you name it. And at that point in time, my mind was just telling me everything bad was going through my mind. Like, how am I going to go on stage and face thousands of persons on the Marshall? At that time it was still at Marshall Grounds, and knowing that persons are attacking me, verbally attacking me on stage. And that was when I felt that, you know, I had to literally block out the noise and go out there and sort of defend myself and show my confidence, in a sense, knowing that this is where I'm. And again, that's where identity comes into play as well. So that, for me, was one of the biggest challenges that I had to face as a LGBT person, activist in St. Lucia, in the sense of me being a public figure, being a soca artist. And there are other challenges as well. I have been verbally attacked on social media. Randall spoke about social media a while ago. On numerous occasions, you know, persons know me to be on the news constantly advocating for the rights of LGBTQI persons. And most times when clips of me are shared online, the remarks have not been quite welcoming. But at the end of the day, I think this has never deterred me to continue doing this work and to continue pressing on, because I believe my mission is my purpose, and this is what I'm here to do, and this is what I was called to do, and this is why I continue to do what I do. In terms of, I have lost friends. I have lost friends who've been on this journey with me and somehow fell off the way when it's like I'm doing too much for them. But I give kudos to my family for being very supportive, knowing that, okay, this is who I am. And you will get persons who will tell you, well, Jessica, you sure? Why are you doing this? This is too much. But at the end of the day, I think that I have a strong backbone when it comes to my family, and that in itself is a major support for me. Other obstacles I have faced, I think walking the streets of Castries, I've never been physically attacked, except for one time I was in Grosile, and at the time I was with my partner, and I was verbally attacked, you know, name calling and whatnot, but I have not, I'm very grateful that walking the streets of Castries, I have people coming up to me on a daily basis telling me, thank you for the work that you do, you inspired me. I have persons who've told me that I have inspired them to come out and live their true self. And that came out of when I did my, my documentary on Untold Stories. After I did that documentary, I had many people come out and told me I gave them that confidence and that hope to live their true self and to live their true identity. So while the obstacles are there and the challenges are there, I think I always look towards the positive and think and press on and hold on to the positive that allows me to continue doing this work, and also inspiring people. For example, this weekend we had Pride, and the amount of persons who called, who showed up, who told me, oh my God, Jessica, you're making space for us. This is what you're doing. Keep it up. Keep up the good work that you're doing. That in itself is my ultimate joy. It's not about the accolades, it's not about the money. It's not about, you know, anything that I'm getting out of it, because trust me, I'm not getting anything out of it. Nothing out of it. I want to put that in there. Nothing out of it. But seeing the impact on the lives that I have, you know, the positive impacts on the lives that we as an organization, we as activists, and myself have brought onto people, that in itself is my ultimate joy. And I always tell people that is my reward. Nothing else. That is my reward.
Now, you mentioned Marshall Grounds and Soca Monarch, and that was some time ago.
Yes.
Okay. Would you say that the societal attitudes towards the LGBTQ plus community, it has changed over time?
I believe it has. And the reason why I say that, because being an activist, I started my activism journey sometime in 2009, 2010, thereabout. And back then, it was quite a bit of a struggle. We could not do this. We could not be on television, live on television, having a panel discussion. We could not have an event in an open public space. We were still having parties at people's home. We were still, you know, behind closed doors. You know, we could not have workshops, conferences, international conferences being held in St. Lucia. So, you know, we have progressed over the years. We were not able to sit down with a government official. We were not able to have an event and have the Prime Minister attend. These things were still considered very taboo. But now we're seeing the progress, and that, of course, credited to the work of the organizations on the ground and the grassroots organizations, and the activists doing the work on the ground has made it easier and also spread the knowledge and allowed persons to understand the issues that exist. And again, persons have always said, oh my God, Jessica, you know what you say is true. Now I understand. Some persons have come to me and told me that I have totally changed the narrative, and now they're no longer homophobic. They respect the LGBT community, you know, and that in itself is a win. When we see governments putting in policies and also inviting us at the table and wanting to get feedback from the LGBT community, because now we're moving into diversity and inclusivity and inclusion. So when you're giving a seat at the table, because before we were not giving a seat at the table, and we would constantly be lobbying, bringing our seats to the table, making sure that our voices are heard. But when now you're getting invited to be part of policy making, policy changes, that is a super win. And across the Caribbean, not only in St. Lucia, we see the changes happening. We've seen that laws have been becoming unconstitutional. St. Lucia, we're waiting on a judgment, and these are just the progresses that continue to evolve and continue to happen in the Caribbean and in St. Lucia. So yes, I do see, look at Pride. St. Lucia started Pride, and this year I believe has been our biggest Pride so far. And persons coming out, we had persons from through all generations, all identities showing up and supporting. So yes, progress is there. The change is there. I will not say full acceptance, but we are at a level of tolerance, and we are at a level where persons can sort of live a more open life, a more comfortable life. The violence will always be there, but we have to continue advocating for change. We have to continue lobbying for change, and that's how we can change the narrative.
Are you happy with where it is right now? Or what would you like to see being done differently or change?
Am I happy? Am I happy where it is right now? Yes and no. Yes and no. No, because I would love to see more laws for protection of LGBT persons. I would love to see that when we get the judgment is a win for St. Lucia, making the burglary law unconstitutional in St. Lucia. I would love to see more equality laws put in place. I would love to see a parade happening in St. Lucia for Pride. I would love to see persons being able to walk the streets holding their partner's hand. You know, and it's all about love is love. It doesn't matter who it is. These are the things that I would love to see in our society. I would love to see persons being able to go to a job interview and not being discriminated based on the sexual orientation or the gender identity. These are the things I would love to see in society happen. And in terms of my yes, I think we're getting there. So that brings me a sense of hope. That brings me a sense of we are on the right path. And you know, maybe when I take my step back, because I've been saying that for a few years now, when I do take a step down and I pass over to people like Yakub and Randall and whoever else, they will be at a point where they are able to fly through this without that many hiccups that we've had in the past and now. So when they get to the future, it's smooth sailing.
Okay. Having a panel discussion here, the identity through the ages, my journey, my era. Randall, let's talk about organizations. What role have LGBTQ plus communities or organizations played in your journey, your specific journey of self-discovery?
For me, I think, well, starting off with United and Strong back in 2014, I think it allowed me the opportunity to see the community in a different light. I think I've always had this idea of what it's supposed to be or what it's supposed to look like. Because, you know, growing up, seeing, you know, the impression of people you're getting onto people like Donovan, Peterson, Shermark, like, you know, during Carnival, that's what you'd see on the road, you know, and that's the idea that we had growing up of what it was supposed to be about the community. But getting involved with United and Strong and being part of the organization, working on the ground with people, made me realize that, oh, everybody's different. You don't have to be that way. And there's this idea that the community is very flamboyant, very promiscuous. I just want to put it out there that when I got the opportunity to understand members from the community, that sort of changed my perspective on the whole, and it allowed me to sort of do some self-reflection, maybe see, okay, who am I? Like, you know, what type of person would I want to be? And that opened my eyes to sort of started advocating more for the community and being more vocal. People used to come up to me with their stories of things that happened to them where, you know, they're experiencing homelessness because the parents put them out. I think, you know, it's a lot bigger than we sort of want to speak about, and people always think like, you know, oh yeah, you choose to be that way. I mean, why would somebody choose to be part of the community where you could get discriminated against, stigmatized, you could get killed, you know, you could not go into a job interview as a female wearing, you know, like your pants on your shirt because that's how you want to express yourself. Going dressed like that, you're already discriminated against. Sometimes you enter the interview room. Why would people want to do these things? Why would you choose to do these things? I think the organizations that have allowed me the opportunity to better understand and being able to work with individuals as well as myself, on like, you know, just being your true self on how you could sort of find your own self or your own sense of self-identity, right? And I think that's what it brought me. And I mean, working with EKID now, which is a lot wider and a lot broader because we work with the Eastern Caribbean, Barbados, St. Croix, St. Martin. You get to understand people from different backgrounds and different cultures. And you could see, although we're all from different countries, our experiences are somewhat very similar. And I think that sort of changes the narrative as to how you can approach things from different situations, taking lessons from different countries that work and seeing if you could implement that, hey, how that could work. And in St. Lucia, one of the things that we sort of started a campaign to change the hearts and minds of individuals but not necessarily changing them as a person. I
Okay.
could change how you feel. Let me just give you an idea how you could change your feelings towards members of the LGBT community. Because they could be your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, your friend, and just treat them how you would treat anybody else. And for me, that's how the organizations have helped me to sort of just, deal with it.
All right, thanks for that. We'll take a quick break, and when we return, we have more with our guests. We are discussing identity through the ages, my journey, my era, and with me, our panel of Jacob Nestor, human rights activist, Randall Theodore, the communications officer of ICAID, and Jessica St. Rose, the founder of 758 Pride. We'll be back.
Suicidal thoughts, like other mental health challenges, can affect anyone. It can be you, your colleague, family member, or neighbor. Everyone has a role to play in preventing suicide. Know the warning signs. If you or someone you know is in crisis or emotional distress, call the suicide hotline at 203. Remember, help is available. This is a message from the Employee Assistance Program, Department of the Public Service. Contact us at 468-2269 or 468-2260.
Welcome back to Nation Beat, a production of the Government Information Service and NTN. We are here discussing the identity through the ages, my journey, my era, with our panelists, Jessica St. Rose, Randall Theodore, and Jacob Nestor. Let's go to Jacob, start of our next segment. We just heard from Randall, and he spoke on the LGBTQ organizations and communities, and of course, the significant impact they played in his journey of self-discovery. For you, how has that visibility and representation of the community, various individuals within the community in media and pop culture, impacted your sense of identity? Because you've been all around the world
Yes.
representing. So I'm sure that you've come across various individuals representing the community as well. So how has that been for you, the visibility and the representation that they have gotten?
So the first person who really kind of made me question my place in society and my identity was actually Madonna.
Madonna, the singer.
The singer. The way she commercialized sex was so interesting, and the way she performed. And I was like, damn, that lady. And she constantly reinvents herself. She never sticks to one thing. But then the thing that really made me understand who I truly was watching Golden Girls with my grandmother, and Bold and the Beautiful, and Young and the Restless, and Guiding Lights, and All My Children, and As the World
What
Turns.
time you had for school and studies in all of that?
Listen, I used to rush home to watch those things. So it was watching those things that you're a young child, but you're being exposed to things that adults watching, that really I started to question myself, okay, who do I want to be with? Why should I be with such a person, etc.? And for me, it was weird because I come from a very heavy Rastafarian background, and all I was taught was Jah, Hail Emperor Selassie, etc. And my parents were very strict in the norm, but my father was different because my father always taught me, be who you are. I think my father and my parents saw from a very young age I was different. I didn't have a deep voice. I had long locks that was reaching my waist. I was looking like a girl, and I wasn't attracted to anybody, but I was always in a book because I really wanted to understand who I am. I had nobody to speak to. And people to this day still have no one to speak to. Then when I start seeing Kenita on TV, Jessica, what's our doctor friend name now? Bennett. Right? And then I was invited to a few workshops at UNS, etc., United and Strong. I really started to be like, oh, well, maybe I kind of fit in here. So I did a lot of the workshops, etc. But the thing is, when I started traveling more, you find people are so open overseas. There is no barrier when you travel. People are just naturally themselves. But in St. Lucia, we're in a society where we think we are so religious more than others. We have let religion become the very fabric that we weave who our children should be. And that is not supposed to be the case, because when you look at really and truly what religion stands for, the same persons who killed Christ then decided, okay, now I believe in your religion, because it was really and truly the Roman Catholic Empire that decided, okay, we now adopting your Christianity. And then it became the Roman Empire who decided, okay, we need a book. And then he had the great Greek philosophers decide what books were supposed to be put into the Bible and what it should, speak about. When you look at the context of the Bible, it's Hebrew, but when you look at the translation came from Greek. So really and truly, the book that has been touched by man so much that we deem to be the word of God is really and truly the ideology itself and theology of different men throughout history who had their own prejudice against different people. So as much as we tend to claim we're Christian, etc., and we run society in that way, I find it's a bit hypocritical, because when you look at some of the sins that we commit, like, okay, if we had to go in the Bible, all sin is sin, but however, everybody, when we discuss Sodom and Gomorrah, we keep on saying Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed because of homosexuality. That's not true. I hate to hear ignorant people. So but Sodom and Gomorrah was described based on the same book that everybody is reading, because of the smell of sin was so strong that it reached heaven. So for the smell of sin in one area to be so strong that God could smell it, that he decided, okay, he needed to destroy it. And we want to say, oh, that was Batman Central, etc. That was not the case. But then we come from a society where religion has made us ignorant, and we have taken religion to be the very doctrine or the thing that we should just believe without researching ourselves. But then you have people like myself and Randall, etc., who decided, oh, these things not making no sense. So we can take that part from the book, but will not believe that Jesus walked on water. Like, I call it BS. So for me, one of the key things that really shaped it, and one of the key persons as well that really shaped it, was also my aunt, Tekla de Turville, because she always told me, you need to understand, people will not like you for who you are. You could have been straight, you could have been gay, etc. People will always find a problem with you. Be who you are and understand yourself, but at the same time respect yourself so that people can respect you. But my mother taught me differently. My mother told me, as long as who you know and you understand who you are, you don't really need to care what anybody thinks about you, because at the end of the day, nobody is living your life. The same way I would not come to your home and tell you what to do in your household. Do not play, you can tell me what to do with my body or come into my life to tell me what to do. And I stand firmly in that belief.
With all what you've just said, how can we now promote a greater understanding and acceptance of these intersectional identities? How would you say we
So firstly, we need to look at the education curricula. There needs to be a phasing out of certain things in the education curricula. I've always said that because I teach, I'm an educator. We need to look at incorporating diversity and inclusion to be a topic that is taught throughout the curriculum. And when you look at diversity and identity, etc., and all those things, or diversity and inclusion, let's put it this way. So in society, we're not going to discuss the LGBTQI issues, but when we look at differently able persons or children with special education, our school, we have a very hypocritical school system where, oh, we're going to accept your child, but at the same time, your child needs to be assigned directly to the special education teacher. So you're telling me my child is allowed into your school, but I just need to send my child directly to your special education teacher because you deem that my child cannot be educated in a normalized classroom because maybe they're autistic, etc. I remember just reading a Facebook post just recently, a guy, his child got accepted into a school, and when it was orientation day, the principal never gave him no notice or anything. She had already deemed that the child could not be accepted into the school. And you find that happening all across islands. Principals feel like the school is theirs. And Ministry of Education is very lax in how they deal with principals, etc. But the purpose I'm saying all of this is that when you look at people who are differently able, as much as we were saying, oh, we're creating spaces for you, if my child has a wheelchair, will you move the entire classroom that's supposed to be upstairs, downstairs to the Form 1 block? Because we have no ramps in the schools. A child who is blind, you have no sign language chats through the school to say, okay, bathroom in sign language, outside on the wall, etc. Your teachers are not properly taught in special education. It always has to be a special education teacher dealing with the situations. The way principals speak down at special education children. If you look at the special education center in Vieux-Fort, is that something to be proud of, that we have such a deplorable building and we have people there, but we're building new big schools? Like, I call BS. I always tell people and politicians in power, when you're looking for tokenism, do not call me because I will not come. I just hate to see that people are used for the ideas to push your agenda, but you're not willing to create the changes. Because we bring the changes, we discuss it with you, and you campaign around that. But then all the time you're in office, only when your term is about to end, now you're trying to push all the things. And for me, I always say, like, politics and politricks, as my mother would call it, is a game that the elites like to play with the lives of young, uneducated people. And that's why if we had an educated society, we would have been further. People who less than 60, 50 years ago come in and telling you, hey, Castri's never changed up to a day like today. That's shameful, man. That's shameful. Schools have still been the same for years. The curricula hasn't changed at all. Now we're trying to bring TVET schools. Like, all those types of things. Like, we're a very backward society, but we have people acting like we live in a very forward society because we're boasting about numbers from certain facets of society. But really and truly, okay, when you look at those numbers that you're boasting about, what is it showing? What is reflected in your society that is showing that your society has progressed? Nothing.
Documentation.
Can I just touch on?
Yeah, go ahead.
Right. I just want to touch on some points that Jacob made. Because one of the things I know that we've constantly advocated for, and I mean, I'm involving it in the conversation because it's really important, is comprehensive sexual education. And the reason why I bring it into the conversation is because now you're looking at, there's lots of young people who get involved in school, you know, young people getting pregnant, young people not knowing what path to take. And I think a lot of teachers come into the school with their own personal beliefs and their own personal values. And some of them bring the very Christian values that they have and that they were brought up with. And that sort of deters children from learning and getting the experiences. And when we sort of change that and change the narrative and bring the diversity and inclusion aspect into the conversation in the schools, that sort of changed the direction of how things are being taught. Because you look at diversity and inclusion does not necessarily involve LGBTQ plus people. They also have the thing where they heard about gender identity, they always go straight to LGBTQ plus people. And we need to get away from that. Diversity and inclusion focuses on a lot more. Disabled people, young youth. I mean, look at the school environment. Everybody there has a different form of identity. Everybody maybe comes from a different background, a different community. That in itself is diversity and inclusion within the school space. So bring these things into conversation. Let the children also ask questions and be more involved in how things are done. And for me, that's just what I wanted to touch on.
Well, Jessica, with all what we've discussed here, I think a very important question would be, what challenges now and what opportunities do you foresee for future generations in terms of identity and also self-discovery?
What challenges? I think living in the society that we live now, and like Jacob and Randall said earlier on, if we don't try to move away from the old thinking and the old way of doing things and not change the education system and not change not bring on the comprehensive education that we need, I think that will hinder our progress. That will hinder a lot of things from happening. When we think of, like Randall mentioned, diversity is across the board. It's not necessarily just LGBT. We have persons with special needs, we have disability, we have women in marginalized circumstances, environments. All of these things are a diverse group set of things that exist in society, and they all come, and that's where intersectionality comes in as well, because intersectionality as well, the challenges that exist, they're all come with their unique challenges and experiences. When we talk about political affiliations, we talk about gender identity, we talk about sexual orientation, women living in marginalized circumstances, poverty, all of these areas are intersectionality that exist in society, and these have the unique challenges. And if we don't tackle these areas, we will constantly be left in the back and not move forward. So I think we have to tackle these areas not together but by themselves, and see how we can address these issues that exist in society. And I think education plays a very, very big, vital role in dealing with that. I think we have to step into the grassroots. We have to start from the bottom before we get to the top. And a lot of times I think we just want to see things happen right away and at the top. We don't necessarily want to start and get the information and document the issues that exist and see how we could work with society, go to the ghettos, meet with the organizations on the ground, because a lot of times persons come and we see, and I like to talk about these things, we see persons like funders who want to work with organizations, but they want to tell you what to do. They want to give you the money, they want to give you the help, but they are not the ones on the ground with society, with the people, with the organizations, with the grassroots on the ground who know the challenges that exist. And we are the ones who know what exists in our society and what needs to be done for change to happen. And I think we have to be able to speak out, and when we meet with these high-level officials, let them know that these are the issues that exist in society, and these are the things that we want to change to see the progress that we need, because everything has its own unique challenges, and we have to find a way to deal with these challenges and so that we can progress as a society. So I think, to wrap it up for me, education is very important. Comprehensive human rights education is important, and not just because I remember when with United and Strong, we have been through the ministry a number of times trying to bring up trying to speak on the conversation of comprehensive sexuality education, but we had to change the language and put in comprehensive human rights education, because when you put in the word sexuality, obviously at that point in time, we have an agenda. We want to probably they have the idea that we're trying to change people into LGBT, trying to change the children or the students into LGBT people, you know. But this is not that. That's not what it is at the end of the day. These things exist, and with social media, we spoke about earlier on, children and people are now so advanced. We don't even have to teach it in the school. It's right there on the internet. They're seeing it and they're asking the questions. But at the end of the day, is how are we teaching them? We have something that we say. We have a term that we use: child-appropriate language. You know, I believe you're not going to tell a kindergarten child what you're going to tell a child in Form 5. You know, so we have to meet each other at the level that they're at, and education is the way, and we have to tackle it and see where it will take us.
All right, thank you for that. We are now near the end of the show. Any final words? We can start with you, Jakob.
My final words would be that for change to occur in St. Lucia, or to occur anywhere, we need to learn that education is the key and the pathway, the only pathway. As long as you can provide the knowledge to your populace, then it creates critical thinking, because you need people to question themselves. But what you need to do as a society is have the avenues that when people start to ask the questions, that there are people who are knowledgeable enough, or institutions who have done the work or continually do the work, so that they may be able to answer some of these questions or guide people based on some of the things that they've come up with. First and foremost, lastly, we don't ever want to enforce our personal views and biases on anyone. That is not what any organization that works in human rights is trying to do. You just want people to understand that human rights is to be respected, and everybody has their own identity when it comes to human rights. The same way you want yours to be respected, they're just asking for theirs to be respected. That's it on my end.
Okay.
Right. For me, the final words that I have to say to this conversation I think at this stage, I just think it's important for everybody to do some self-reflection. I guess having the activists on the ground more involved and getting more seats at the table. What we see lacks in the region is data. The region lacks data tremendously. And we know NGOs on the ground literally do all the work in finding data, all the researches, all the conversations that's happening. And government needs our data, but they don't want us at the table. So if you need our data, get us at the table so we could give you the data that you need to put proper policies in place and to probably work to make your society better for all civilians. And I think St. Lucia is a beautiful place. We have a lot to offer. We need to stop making all the talented people go away and have a level of brain drain on the island. LGBTQ plus people contribute a lot to society, a lot. You might have them in high positions of power, but because people might be afraid to be themselves because of laws and how stigmatized they could be, people tend to stay away or some travel to find better opportunities and use the talents over there than keeping it on islands. I think for me it's just ensuring that we do more to have all people included and make them feel safe and just being able to express themselves freely.
Thank you very much. Well, folks, this is where we come to the end of our discussion. Our panel today was Ms. Jessica St. Rose from 758 Pride, Communications Officer from ECAID, Randall Theodore, and human rights activist Jacob Nestor. The title, Identity Through the Ages, My Journey, My Era. This has been Nation Beat. Thank you all for joining. I've been your host, Kendall Eugene. Have a great day.